Morgan, the feature writer for the San Antonio Marriage Initiative. I am so delighted today to introduce you to Deborah Timson. She's the executive director of the Marriage Dynamics Institute. Deb runs the Nashville based nonprofit Christian ministry, which partners with couples and churches to build powerful and effective marriage ministries by providing training for leaders, classes that bring about change in marriage, inspirational workshops, and intensive retreats that saved troubled marriages. Since 1994, more than 100,000 people have experienced Marriage Dynamics Institute's classes and workshops with proven positive results. Their curriculum is based on Dr. Willard Harley's best-selling His Needs, Her Needs, and the Love Bank model. Deb's helped move Marriage Dynamics Institute into a new era of blending in-person and online offerings to allow more versatility and to reach greater audiences. Deb, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Amy. I really am excited about being here.
Well, this is just great. Let's talk a little bit about this love bank concept and Dr. Harley's work. I mean, you and I, this is old hat. We know all about him and his needs and her needs, but there may be some of our champions or some in our audience that either have just kind of heard it in passing, they don't really understand. So can you kind of unpack, because it's foundational for your curriculum, right?
Sure. Well, for our flagship curriculum, it is for dynamic marriage. And it really talks about the love bank model of how you make deposits into your relationship. And when you make deposits, that builds the love. And you can also make withdrawals, unfortunately. And if you make too many withdrawals, then you get into that red zone. And so you really start getting into a more crisis. So it really is a great model for people to really hone in on. So it's really exciting to be able to talk about the emotional needs of couples, but also talking about that love bank model.
Yeah. And I talked to Dr. Harley. I had the privilege of interviewing him about a
Yes.
little year and a half ago or so. And one of the things that struck me about the love bank, you know, it, an illustration of a way to explain our emotions, but it is also involuntary. That was
Yes.
something I did not understand, that you are making withdrawals or deposits to each other's love banks, but you can only affect that by what you do or say, but you can't make somebody else's love bank
Right.
accept your deposit, nor can you keep your own love bank from emotionally making a withdrawal when somebody hurts you. As much as you might want to, you're like, well, wait, it's involuntary.
Exactly. It is involuntary, and it goes with any relationship. I mean, from your children to your spouses to your coworkers. I mean, it is about whether or not you're being intentional in your love deposits, and it even, like you said, can be unintentional. It's just the little things you do. For me, it is, my goodness, my husband loves to go grocery shopping. I do not. And so our deal is he goes grocery shopping and I put them away when he
Yeah.
brings them home. That fills my love tank, along with many other things that he does. But it's been an incredible experience of learning along the way how you make those deposits and withdrawals, unfortunately.
Yeah, and there are, and people have the different needs too. I know, like, my husband has that spousal support need. He really likes a tidy house. And after
Mhm.
being married 27 years, like, I figured
Yes.
that out, thankfully, a little bit before 27 years. But, that's something important to him. And if he comes home and, the house is in chaos, that
Yeah.
bothers him. And so I've learned, just, it doesn't, it's not white glove clean, but it's tidy.
Yes. And for us, it's we've been married 35 years, so like you said. And so it being able, for us, it's recreational companionship. We love to do things together, whether it's hiking, whether it's going kayaking, and that, for me and him, it just fills that love tank. So it's really a beautiful way of illustrating how we can support our spouses.
Yeah, well, and that's great. And those are probably some of the things that you guys talk about in your curriculum. You have
It is.
several different arms.
Yes.
Um, you tell me how you'd like to discuss? Do you want to start with, the enrich and then the crisis, or do you want to go right with the flagship and you direct which way you want to start?
Oh, Well, we did start in 1994 with just dynamic marriage as the flagship curriculum. I think at the time it was called the His Needs, Her Needs course. And so over time it was changed names to dynamic marriage. But it has been around since that time. The basis of the curriculum has pretty much stayed the same. We've had facilitators that we trained many years ago, some 20 plus years, who have been leading this course the same way, designed the same way, and they still get the same type of results of people being so enamored with how much their marriage has grown in those 6 weeks, or I'm sorry, those 9 weeks that they take the course.
So let's talk about that course a little bit. Like you said, because our marriage champions could be very interested, because this is a course that you've prepared for the churches, and you train people to lead it. So let's talk about that, because this is your audience. These are people that will
Yes.
be interested.
Well, we have trainings that we do because the courses are led specifically by trained facilitators. So you go to a 2.5 day training to learn how to lead the course, because you're learning about a process of how the class is intentionally laid out. Each week builds on each other. And we have two courses. One is called Dynamic Marriage, and it is based on that emotional, his needs, her needs, and the emotional needs of couples. Very practical tools that are in there. And then we designed United. And United is God's design for marriage. It talks about love and respect and trust, spiritual intimacy. So all those things has the same results over those 9 weeks. But as a trained facilitator, once you become that, you can lead either course. It doesn't matter if you're trained in dynamic marriage or United. You have the ability to lead either course that you want to. So it's really exciting. We also find out that there are couples who are a little bit more in crisis. And so an enrichment course isn't what they need at the time. So in 1999, the company developed, based on what they were seeing in the courses, that people were a little more in crisis. We designed a new beginning workshop. It is a intensive. It's a 3 day intensive led by a counselor and their spouse. And we have them both there in Houston. We have them in Nashville. We have them in Indianapolis, and online as well. So we try to be able to be a resource to couples across the country, whatever their needs are. So that's a 3 day intensive that really goes a lot deeper than just the dynamic marriage course can.
Well, and you've had some wonderful results about with that
Yeah.
intensive. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Talk about the intensive. You said you've got special couples who lead that, when where somebody is actually a therapist as well as being a
Mhm.
mentor couple. Um, but talk about that.
Well, it is. We do. It is a husband wife team, and one of them is a licensed counselor that has been in family and marriage therapy that for at least 10 or 15 years. And they're still leading the course. It's not group counseling, it's not group therapy. It's still an education based program, but it gets into a lot of more things about things that might be people are dealing with, the anatomy of an affair, because some people are having to deal with that, or communication and how to be better communicators, and how you negotiate with each other in a marriage, because it is a lot of give and take. And it's beautiful to see what happens. We've had many couples who've gone through the A New Beginning workshop. And at the end, we've had couples tear up divorce papers. We've had couples that were meeting with mediators and canceled appointments. And we've had some wonderful, wonderful testimonies that have come out of that over the course of these last 20 plus years.
Well, and again, that's a really proven track record of a lot of success. And you had some statistics too, about just how successful you guys are with that program.
It is. We have 3 out of 4 couples that are still together a year after taking the work or going through the workshop. And they are claiming marital satisfaction over 80% in their marriage.
And these
So
are some of the most troubled. These are the people that were identified. And how are they identified that they're perhaps not the best fit for united or marriage dynamics?
really, we ask some simple questions because a lot of times couples, just think that, well, maybe if we can just get into an enrichment course, we'll be okay. But one of the questions we tend to ask couples is, if nothing changes in your marriage in the next year, where do you think you'll be? And it's that's a profound question for a lot of couples. When you ask both the husband and the wife, and for them to see, wow, we've had people break down in tears that if nothing changes, we're going to get divorced. And so we know that that's kind of a couple that's more in crisis and they really need to be in an intensive.
Yeah. And tell me again what it looks like. You said it's a weekend, but can you kind of walk us through what that intensive looks like?
It's a starts at 8 a.m. on Friday morning, and it goes through Friday 8 to 6, Saturday 8 to 6, and Sunday is usually about 12:30 to 6. And it is exactly what it talks about. It's an intensive, but they are together with a group of other couples. It's usually a more intimate between 6 to 12 couples, and really they are learning things together as they move along. And we don't let the each other talk about each other. They're really learning about themselves and how they communicate and how their pain is how their pain is really affecting the marriage and what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that is just great that you have, and you have a screener too. That if they call or if a couple or if you marriage champions know a couple that you really think needs a 180, they can call or connect through your website, correct? And then the screener will help direct them to the correct resource.
That is correct. They can call our 1-800 number. And when they do that, they'll have somebody who answers that phone and they'll be able to talk them through what the course is about, that 3-day intensive, and get them signed up for it and what will be convenient to them in their neighborhood.
Well, let's go back and talk about the enrichment portion again.
Yes.
You've got the classes and you do the train the trainer. Let's talk about your training the trainer, because again, our marriage champions are people that are just perfectly suited to be trainers. So how would they on ramp with you to do that?
Well, sure. Well, we know that the pandemic has really caused a lot of churches that couldn't meet and whatnot, and so we needed more people to get involved with the ministry and to learn how to do this process. So we've been on we've been doing some work on a train the trainer model of training facilitators, how to train these facilitators so that they can be more in their local areas. And so we are looking for couples that want to come alongside and train facilitators. And in that, they can be dispersed in their own communities. And then the courses can be in those communities and not have to wait for a training to be near them. So we have online ones, but they're not as often as we would like. So we want to make sure that we get as many couples trained so that these courses can be led across the country. So I just talked to a pastor this morning who was leading a class in California, and they'll get started in the next week or so. And he just said to me, he said, "This is the best kept secret." And I really am so excited to finally start seeing states like Washington and California, Oregon, be able to start leading these classes. So we're trying to get the word out about these courses, and they're not just Bible study courses. These are transformative courses. It's intentionally laid out so that couples learn habits, good habits in their marriage so that their marriage can get transformed. They're changing the trajectory of their marriage. They're being one of the things we laugh about and talk about is you will take your car into a mechanic and do a tune-up. And people get afraid when they see someone else taking a marriage course. They're like, oh, their marriage is in trouble. And really, it's not about that. It's about being intentional in your marriage, and it's trying to keep it safe and protected and let it grow.
and giving it a priority. Like, I love your analogy with a car. You would not just, well, if you just, drive your car without getting the oil change, without checking the fluids, without you're gonna taking it in for regular maintenance, you're gonna get a flat tire. You're gonna blow up your transmission.
Exactly.
Bad things are going to happen. So why do we not think that marriage would be the same way?
I know. And, life gets tough sometimes. I mean, you've got kids, you've got activities, you've got church activities, and all of those things are really good. But when they start crowding in on your time and your intentional time together, that's when things can start going wrong. And so we want to make sure that couples know to prioritize their marriage.
And that's one of the skills that is taught there at the marriage dynamics or in United. So United has more of the scriptural focus. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's more biblically based, and in the sense of, even though everything is fundamentally on biblical principles, the dynamic marriage course is really about those emotional needs. It takes a more psychological approach. And then with the United, it talks more about the biblical approach and what God's designed for marriage. So, yes.
Because those classes, you do offer them online, correct, for the consumer. So anyone who wants to take an enrichment class, they can get into an online class. Is that correct?
Well, they can, as long as we have a facilitator who's willing to lead it online. And we do have a good handful of those, but just was talking with a lady this morning who she was wanting to do an online class, but hasn't quite filled up, because the class really works best with that 6 to 8 couples. Usually the class can go up to 12 to 14 couples. But again, it's that intimate setting where couples can build community together. So it's amazing to see what happens over the course of those 9 weeks that they're in that class together. So
So
yes, they can lead them online as well once they're trained facilitators.
so it ideally would be a great fit in a church or an organization where like a couple's like get a facilitator could get trained and then would take it back to their church, and it would be a great thing to do with a couple's Bible study or a couple's Sunday school class.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It again is one of those transformative courses, but they come in, a lot of churches will send couples to get trained as facilitators, and then they'll come back and they'll lead a class in the spring, class in the fall, and really build community in their own church. And then some churches use it as an outreach into their community of opening it up and allowing couples that may not know Jesus and be able to come in. And they just see, especially with dynamic marriage and talking about those emotional needs, it just allows God to work. And that's, people say all the time, what is it about your courses or your 3-day intensive that works so well and gives great results? And God just shows up. He shows up every single time.
I love that. I love that. And I love that it's something that, like you said, it builds and they can continue to practice and learn good skills. And
Right.
so if they were going to, if somebody, if a marriage champion wanted to train to be a facilitator, again, what's the best way for them to on ramp with them? Do they come to you? Do they do it online? Both? And could you walk us through? Because I can just imagine that there's somebody watching right now and that's their heart is pricking with that desire.
Well, the best thing for them to do is to just give us a call. And in the midst of that, we'll talk them through it. We usually uh, walk them through that process because we want to get some recommendation forms. Because what we don't want is a couple that may be in crisis themselves leading, becoming a facilitator. We want them to get the help. We really do value everyone's marriage. So we want to make sure that they're fundamentally in a good place in their own marriage. And this will be an enrichment for their marriage as they move along. So the best thing to do is to give us a call and visit us at our website, fill out a contact form. That way that we can contact them back and find the best fit for them, whether it's a live one or whether it's going to be online.
Oh, well, you always, it's the old adage, but I found it rings true that when you're the teacher, you always internalize the material the best when you're leading somebody, or it always really helps to learn things that way.
It
You got to
did.
know what you're talking about.
Well, you and I had talked earlier, and one of my favorite parts about the dynamic marriage course and the United course that we do is this affirmation process. It's amazing how many people haven't heard a whole lot of things that are about them. And when, when you're hearing other people talk, for me, it was when I heard people say things about my husband, that you are courageous, you are strong, you
Mm.
love your family well. And they're just things that you hear other people say. It just brought tears to my eyes. So
Mm.
that's just one of my favorite parts.
Oh, I love that. I love that. How little in this world we always hear things that tear us down, and how little
Yes.
do we hear the things that build us up. So,
Yes, even my grown kids, I tell them all the time, this world will tell you 1,000 times over of the things you do wrong and tear you down. I want to build you up, and I want to tell you how much I care about you and love you. And I think that that's part of this course, and what they do is you learn that process of how valuable affirmations are.
I love that. Well, and then in addition, you have the intensive weekend, and you have the 9-week classes, but you also have another weekend, right? So the reconnect.
We have a reconnect weekend. We have a couple that uh, usually goes across the country. The Reconnect weekend is kind of a fun uh, 6-hour event that churches can have. A lot of times, churches will bring it to their church and just have spouses come, and it'll be a fun night. It can be over a Friday night or Saturday morning or an all day Saturday event. It's really just a fun, a little bit more intense of connecting people back to each other, So there's some few concepts that are in the classes that are kind of in that weekend to give you a taste of what the 9-week courses would be like. So we would love to be able to talk to people about Reconnect and how you can bring that to your church.
Is there like a component of entertainment, or food, or any other way that that works to, because again, I could see that being a really good outreach.
It is. I mean, it's a fun weekend, so there's a few activities, and if I share too much, you would spoil the fun.
You tell all your secrets,
But
right?
it's a fun, lighthearted, but it does get into just a little meat, so you can see the value of being intentional in your marriage. And I think that that's the important thing. But it's really kind of just a way to get away for a couple of hours on a weekend, to just say, "Hey, I'm gonna just spend some time with my spouse." And churches can have it broken up to a morning and an afternoon session, and provide lunch in between, where they can just have fun games in that time, or whatnot. So I think it would be great for churches to do that.
And you said that, do you have that at certain locations, or you have certain facilitators who bring that, or?
Well, we have a certain facilitator that goes across the country. So it usually works. They try to work out the schedule that will work best with the church. So they are the ones that go to the church. So couples don't have to go anywhere. They can do it in their own hometown.
That's great. And what are you working on the 2023 schedule now? I bet you're already planning.
Oh, we are. We are. We're trying to solidify some dates so that we can start posting those, because people are starting to ask about those.
Well, it's so great to be talking about events, talking about gathering. That's one of the
Yes.
things that you and I talked about, that, after several years of, online is fine, but after several years, we're really hungry to reconnect. What are you seeing?
Oh, we see it from both perspectives. I will say, I think there is a hunger for people to be in person again. There's nothing like hugging your neighbor and being able to empathize with them and be there in person and just listen. But I am so thankful that we have an online venue where we can reach people, and they can still get some of that same connectivity with people that may be across the country from each other. We had a couple in a class that were in Alaska. Now they had to get up extra early or stay extra late. But
Oh, wow, that's commitment.
we even had a couple that was in on the mission field, and so back at their church, they were doing an online class. And so they were in, I believe it was Africa. And so they were completely in the middle of the night doing the class, but they were committed to doing it. So I think the sky's the limit when it comes to being online. I love the fact that we will always have it as a resource.
Yeah, well, and that is so true. That is one thing that we learned over these past crazy years, that how much, it's an and more. It is the silver lining that we all
Yeah,
are able to find the resources and be able to access them when we need to. But then it also
exactly.
is nice that things are coming back and doing in person as well. It's nothing like drinking some coffee and having a little snack together.
Exactly, exactly. To just be able to share about your kids and in the downtime, and that is a little. You have to work a little harder. I think you can still get it online, but I think there's nothing that will ever replace being live and in person and just being able to hug each other and say, what's going on.
Well, we've touched on it a little as we're talking on the online, but what's on the horizon? How are you, as you're moving the Marriage Dynamics Institute, forward? What are your visions and goals and plans?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the what's taken the biggest chunk of our time is to uh, get this train the trainer model up and running. So I'm excited to see what that is exactly, how we can get it back into the communities. And there could be so many more classes. So if we get more facilitators who are training facilitators, then the sky's the limit. And we've been trying to work on programs where we can do things overseas as well. So those are exciting things that are coming to town. So how great would it be having classes again in the UK, or in we have a few in Canada now, being in Africa. I think it would just be amazing to see these classes explode in other countries as well.
Well, I know too, you have a military background, and I would imagine that there would be some great application there for.
Oh, yeah. Well, my husband was a Marine, and once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. And
Thank
so our 35 years of marriage has been in either military life in the Marine Corps or law enforcement, and my heart is there. I know what those families deal with on a day-to-day basis, and how difficult those strenuous lifestyles are for couples. And so, yes, very practical application to a lot of what people are going through. We've had a couple of different facilitators that are located outside of different bases across the country, where they are specifically for military families that are in those communities. And we love to support them, love
you.
to support them.
That just sounds like such a need. When you talk about the law enforcement community and the military, and again, that's kind of the both and. If when I'm thinking about people who may be deployed,
Yes.
who have that opportunity to do something together, even if one of them maybe, because you can set up, it doesn't really, I mean, with an online platform, he could be one place and she could be another, but you're still together doing something to build your relationship, even if you're far away.
Absolutely. I think there for a while, because we were doing them all live and in person, kind of left out this group of people that it just didn't work, and especially with deployments. And so or just being stationed somewhere for a long period of time, and the family couldn't go, so it gives them that opportunity to connect. Not the most ideal situation, but I tell you, we've heard some amazing testimonies that come out of it that keep the couple connected. And I
Right.
think that's the most important goal, the most
Connected.
important goal.
Well, and connected around, so it doesn't select that FaceTime call or whatever isn't just about, oh, what the baby eat, or
Yes.
what about this bill or whatever. It's keeping them connected around and building into their love banks, and around an affirmation, or around just a skill to help them. That's just really important.
Oh, it's extremely important. And I think when they're having to be separated like that, there's this they want to feel like they're at home. And so this allows them that opportunity and the intentionality. I think that's the biggest thing we hear, especially in the crisis workshop. We tell people all the time, you are not alone. There is hope. There's hope for marriages. Marriages don't have to end in divorce. And when you're intentional in your marriage, hopefully you'll never have to get there. I'm thankful that we have a product that helps couples that are in crisis. But if we can help couples not ever get there, that would be amazing. And that's kind of where our heart is. I know you can see behind us, but our mission and our vision. But our vision is to see marriages full of joy, meaning, and purpose that build stronger communities across the country. So we want stronger families, stronger churches, stronger communities.
Well, that it's Sammy, we are right there on the same page with you. So so glad that you could join us today. Deb,
Um,
thank you so much for being here.
well, thank you, Amy. I really appreciate you taking the time with me and just getting the word out about marriage dynamics. We're excited to be partnering with you guys and so many different initiatives. I'm excited to see what the future is holding.
Well, we are as well. And marriage champions, if you would like to know more about Marriage Dynamics Institute or Deb, you can always find us at samarriage.org.